Hello, beautiful souls. I am Valeria Maritza, your host here at Healing Through You. I am an infinite being of light, and so are you. You guys remember when I interviewed my friend Craig Meriwether, and he is a hypnotherapist and who does past life regressions and all kinds of things. And I have two podcasts with him, and this is my third time. So he is a third time guest here. Today we're going to talk about my experience because I had a past life regression with Craig through his hypnotherapist modalities. So I wanted to just say thank you
Oh,
and welcome.
thank you, Valeria. Thank you. Yeah, this is third time I've ever been on a podcast before, so I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, wow, that's exciting. Yeah, so after I interviewed you, I remember that we went way past our time, so we had to divide it into two different podcasts. I look at this, it says 11:11 a.m. How does it get any better than that?
Right.
Perfect, angels. Um, and I really wanted to talk about the past life regression because I was so interested in that from a hypnotherapist who, this is your life, you studied this, you know how to do this, you explained it so well. And so, of course, I had to dive in and see what it was all about. So, did you want to say anything about like how we started or anything, or should I just start talking about my experience?
Well, we spent an hour last time kind of talking about the whole theories behind it and all that. So I don't want to go too much in depth because I think we talked a lot about that already.
Hmm.
In that I guess there's a part one where we just talk about kind of hypnotherapy in and of itself and what it is, and then we went deeper in the part two on past life regression, and then we thought it'd be fun just to for us to chit chat more about maybe not even the specific details because some of that can be very 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 private, but uh, more about your experience and how you felt during it and what the experience was like for you. Of course, the experience is different for everybody. I mean, there's what something 8 billion people on the earth today, and so people are going to have different experiences. People may read the Brian Weiss books, Many Lives, Many Masters, and all this. So many books out there, and they think that's the way it's going to be for them, and most often it's not. We can receive this information in so many different ways, but it is interesting to hear somebody's perspective on what they felt and their experience about it and what kind of insights they gained and how that has literally, changed their focus maybe afterwards. And what do I found we were talking before we pressed the record button, the insights aren't just within that 3 hour time frame that we're doing the past life regression. It's the insights come days, weeks, even months later as you may be reading a passage in a book that never made sense to you. Now all of a sudden it's all coming together, or insights you may have had when you were younger that now take on a different perspective, because of what you're gaining from the past life regression, the understanding you're having, maybe more understanding about purpose and your mission in life. And so it's interesting to get other people's perspective on their own experience so that, it's not always like you read in books, uh, which are oftentimes chosen because of their extraordinary nature and their interesting stories and things like that. People have different experiences, and so it's always nice to get another person's perspective on what they experienced.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So today I'm just going to dive in and tell you guys what happened in my experience. And I'm going to just really be real about it and tell you all about kind of like how it felt, what I went through, how it unfolded later. Um, And because I feel it's really important to see how things could happen so that you don't miss the little nuggets that come in perhaps during the session or right after the session or maybe days, weeks, months after the session. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I came to Greg and Craig, sorry, and
Yeah.
and I I was like, I don't know what do I want to talk about? What do I want to figure out? So I pick one thing, which I know a lot of people are struggling or dealing with excess weight or their bodies not being in the best health place. So I was like, okay, how about we go into my past life regressions and see if there's anything there that is holding me back, quote unquote, from releasing excess weight because I've been like a yo-yo like all my life and literally all my life. And that was the focus. It was just like, what's going on with this? Like,
Yeah.
can you give me some insights? Can I see some insights into is something hindering me from a past life? So, okay. So we went into, Craig was very good at explaining everything, like how we're going to do. We did some exercises before just to get into the space. And then we started going, he started guiding me to go back. And he just asked me like what do you see or what do you feel? And I've never had a hypnotherapist session before, and I only knew what I thought I it was, like from the movies when like people are like non-responsive, kind of like a zombie, kind of like doing whatever the hypnotherapist tells them. And it wasn't like that at all. I was like completely conscious the entire time. I knew where I was, I knew what I was doing or saying, and it felt like I was there, like I was not being taken over, is what I'm trying to say. So for some people who might have that fear of like, oh, what's gonna happen? I'm here to tell you that does not happen, at least with me. And I don't think it happens with people, right? People are in
Right.
control.
Yeah. Yeah. It and then I think we talked about like a lot of this in the first part, but it's really all in terms of this work, it's all really about your intention
Mm,
and what it is you're looking for. Of course, a lot of people come to hypnotherapy and past life regression for healing. Oftentimes, especially in past life regression, there's something in your current life that's causing issues. Everything from, you know, anxiety issues down to anger issues, even physical pain issues that the doctors can't find a cause for. And your intuition, you're getting that little nudge that, oh, maybe it's past life. I read some books, read some research, and maybe that's a way to go. And that's usually the way a lot of people start looking into past life regression is because they can't find a current life resolution to it because they can't find a reason for it. They can't find a reason for the anger. It keeps coming back. Can't find, the a fear of deep water
mhm.
or a fear, of being claustrophobic, and they've been to therapists and they're just can't seem to get resolved. And somebody may mention it or they hear it on a TV show or they read a book and they think, okay, maybe past life regression is the way to go. It'll come to you when you're ready for it. You know how that is.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
teacher
for
will
sure.
show when you're ready for the teaching
Exactly.
to be educated and to learn. And so people find out about this in all sorts of different ways, but it's often because of the hurt and pain they're struggling with, whether it's emotional or mental pain or even physical pain they've been dealing with for a long time. I was just really quickly an aside. I don't think I mentioned this in the part two episode, but if I did, it's still a pretty cool story. I always follow up with people a few days afterwards, check up on them and make sure they're doing all right, and you know at least email back and forth about insights or questions or they may have. And this one person I emailed a few days later, and she said, talking about her experience and how wonderful it was. She also said, and all my hip pain is gone. And she had chronic hip pain for some 20 years. And she'd been to all the doctors, did all the MRIs and physical therapy, and nobody could deal with her hip pain. And it was just something she lived with. She didn't even mention it. I didn't know she had hip pain. That's what wasn't what we were working on. And but as you may describe here in a little bit, we go to a healing space, a healing room up in the spirit world, because you're going to pass in the past life. You're going to move from that body and become spirit again, and we'll move up into that what Michael Newton calls life between lives, kind of in between incarnations here on Earth. And there's a place of healing there, and you move to that space. You walk through that door, and it's different for people, different people. It's what kind of healing they need. Maybe it's a healing involving some sort of light or energy or water or something. But it's different for uh, people. But one thing we always do is disconnect the negative cords from people that may be attached to them that are affecting their current life that may be from other past lives. So disconnect all those negative cords that are affecting your current life. And literally, I have people pull them out. Maybe there's one, maybe there's 10, maybe there's 100. And, if necessary, ask for help. If your guide is there, ask for help. Usually there's other kind of healing beings there. So ask for help. And she was pulling out the cords. And I give people time and silence. We're having conversations during our work together uh, to help facilitate and help guide, but also for the recording to gain insights about what you're going through. So later on, a couple weeks from now, after your session, months from now, later, you could go back to the transcript, go back to recording and listen again, or read through the transcript. And so I'm asking a lot of questions, and even though you're still in this trance state, you're able to respond. But during the healing space, I give people privacy. This is their healing. And while I guide, encourage, I don't really ask what's going on. That's a private matter. And I said, just pull out those cords and I give people time. And and she wasn't excessively long, but she was a kind of like I see movement, I see things happening. I'm watching, making sure she's okay, making sure her college is okay, that she's doing well. But she's taking time. Okay, you take all the time you need. We got plenty of it. And she signals me that she's done. And I'm like, all right, we'll move on to the next part of our session in the spirit world. Well, a few days later, she told me that there was a huge cord on her hip and she had trouble pulling it out. It was so big and so stuck in there, she had trouble pulling it out. So she asked her guide for help. Her and her guide could not pull it out. So they asked the other beings to come over and pull it out, and they pulled and they pulled and they pulled and they pulled, and finally they all pulled it out, and her pain was all gone. And she, after like some 20 years of hip pain, chronic hip pain, it was all gone.
That's
And I
amazing.
wasn't even something where, she had mentioned in her intake form or in our conversations or even during the past life regression that she was working on. She just did it on her own, and so
Amazing.
this work can be extraordinarily healing, not only, just emotionally, not only through with your mindset or discovering purpose or your ultimate goal or mission in this current life, healing relationships, but also you can affect physical healing, you know. And so it's a quite extraordinary for people, and people of course have different experiences depending on what they want to work on, but it's your experience and your healing, and you'll go in and do the work you need to do. So it's quite powerful. Yeah.
For sure. I
Yeah.
love that story. I love that story. And I also love that she calling her guy, she calling the team because she, even in that space, felt that she needed more help in order
Yeah.
to release what was holding her back.
Yeah. Yeah, it was quite powerful. Yeah. Is when you move up into the spirit world, because the two important parts, I think, of the past life regression and then moving up in the spirit world are the point of passing in that past life, the moment of death. Because in those last moments, it's really your emotions, your mindset in that body that is kind of the throwing action, as they say, kind of the technical term, if you will, in past life regression therapy, the throwing action that's going to affect your current life. What are your feelings about relationships, about love, about uh, money, about work? Is life fair? Is life unfair? Is life filled with pain or is life filled with joy? those moments as you pass will you will take with you. And so, even fear, maybe if somebody had a wonderful life, but maybe they drowned as they're on a ship or something and they drown, man, now they're taking maybe a fear of water, of the deep ocean, because in those last moments, even though maybe they had a wonderful, amazing life. And so that's going to affect their current life. And they grow up in a mountain town in the middle of America, Colorado or somewhere, um, and never seen the ocean, yet they have a deep fear of water, you know. And so, excuse me, the the important part of the past life, and not only just the insights and what you discover, but the important parts of the past life, I think, is that last few moments in that life, and what are you bringing with you, the emotional content, and where you believe. Are you making any vows? Are you making vows of revenge? Are you making any sort of taking any insights with you about how life has treated you? But the second most important part, or I don't know if it's first or second, but another important part is when in the spirit world we go to that healing space. People may go to different places. There's lots of different places to discover and use as retreat and to restore and to renew yourself. Maybe meet with your soul friends, or do orientation with your guide, or just go to a resting place, go to the spiritual library. Many places to go. But and while I don't necessarily guide people to those places, I may offer suggestions. But one place we always go that is suggested is, like, is it time to go to the healing place, because that's where a lot of the issues that people have been dealing with in their current life can get resolved, including physical pain. So it's quite extraordinary.
Yeah. So in my past life regression, I'm going to tell you what I saw. And I saw a couple of lives, and one of them was me in this huge field. I saw this shack at the end, and it was like boarded up. It was like a house that was boarded up, but it was like a little shack. And then behind me was this huge forest. I remember that. And I remember that I had a lot of fear, and I was being chased by, like with felt like wolves, but it was a group of males, of people.
Hmm.
And then I went into the forest, and I'm just paraphrasing, I'm just making it
All
really
right.
short for to tell you guys. And then when I was in the forest, it was kind of like that was the only place I could go. And then they catch up to me, and I die. And then once I die, um, it was a violent death. I remember that. And I was like, okay, maybe this is something that happened that's preventing me or allowing me to like hold on to excess weight in this life. Is I'm trying to make this connections myself. Um, and then from there, I went into this whole other place, which was completely unexpected, where I felt like I was the light of God. I felt like I was seeing all of this beingness, oneness. It was incredible. And I actually haven't listened to the recording yet again. I just have not felt ready for it. But it was just very mystical, very profound, insightful place that I was at. And then I came out, and again, this happened in like an hour and a half, okay? And
Right.
everything that I just told you, I'm just paraphrasing and making it really short. And after the session, I was like, okay, that was wonderful. That was great. That was incredible. All of the things. And I started trying to make my conscious mind make sense of what the past life was and how that might relate to me now. And I felt like, well, that really didn't show me much about what I wanted. This is like exactly the thought that I had, right? But it was really good. I still feel lighter. I still feel like I heal parts of me. Um, but I still felt like I didn't get to the bottom of it. That was kind of like my down overall feeling on the specific question I had. And I'm sharing this because I feel that A lot of people may have something similar where they feel like it's not all there, or something's missing, but the healing keeps working afterwards, and you keep receiving information that keeps resurfacing from that as time goes on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what happened to me, unless you wanted to say something at that
No,
point.
no, no.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just fascinated. Yeah.
Yeah. So then it was like a week later, I'm sharing with a close friend of mine who's also a healer. And I'm sharing something. I don't know how the subject came up of a childhood memory that I had, that I was like fixated on something. And then he just dropped in, and I was like, oh. And the whole revelation came through that something had happened to me while I was a child that prompted this obsession of like repetitive things that I was doing as a child. And it was this fact, this moment that happened to me, that was allowing or making my body hold on to extra weight as protection.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
had this moment of like, all my life I've had this question in the back of my head: has had something happen to me as a child? And I had asked many healers, I had done the work myself, I had gone into the Akashic records, psychics, and the answers always no. And it was always like there in the back of my head. And now it dropped in like, oh, something did happen. I completely blocked it out, so I don't actually remember what happened, which is not the point. um the point is that I got validation that that thought, that thing that was sticking at me like all my life, that I kept asking, actually had happened. And I had this sense of peace and release.
Right.
And I knew in that moment, I was like, oh, it is now safe to release any excess weight from my body. I no longer need to hold on to what I've been holding on to back and forth to protect myself. And it was a huge ball of a moment, because it was the culmination of all of my life.
Right.
And this happened a week after. So it was huge. It was like the biggest breakthrough I've had, through all my entire healing um,
Yeah.
story, because it just gave me that completion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well, thank you for sharing that. I know that's very vulnerable and very private thing to share. So one, thank you for sharing that with us. But it also goes to show one, what I love about this work is while I help facilitate
Mm-hmm.
and I help guide people and kind of play lifeguard, if you will, on the side of the pool, you're the one doing the work. And you're the one gaining the insights, and you're the one doing the healing work as well, maybe with your guides or other healing beings, like the story with the lady with the hip pain. But what I always find just extraordinary is the insights and the healing people have that I'm not even aware of,
Mm-hmm.
because it's happening on maybe even a, a deeper level than I'm aware of. And people will come in because maybe they've gone through years and years and years of people telling them you can't be helped, you can't be helped, there's nothing wrong with you, or we can't find out what's wrong with you, or it's all in your head, or whatever people, the doctors or the professionals or the experts are telling them. And so they come in with, well, I guess this is just the way it will be and the way it is.
Mm.
And, really the issue is, you know, X, Y, and Z, but they come in wanting to work on A, B, and C. And say, well, I'm interested in this and working on these things. The real underlying issue that's been affecting them that they would like to have resolved is X, Y, and Z, but we'll just work with A, B, and C because I know I can, work with that and deal with that. But what ends up happening is that this intense level of healing that they're doing within themselves during this experience is actually healing that core issue they've always wanted to resolve. And even if like I said of some minutes ago, the insights and the healing keep coming from, not just during those few hours we are together, but in the days and the weeks and the months afterwards. And maybe in a couple of years, you'll come across the transcript or the recording. It's like, oh, that's right. I'd kind of forgotten about that. And so much has happened in the last 2 years. And you take time to read through the transcript or maybe listen to a little bit of the recording, and even more insights come to you because you've grown so much. You have so much more knowledge and information and wisdom, and have done so much more healing. And the interesting thing about weight, certainly, with a lot of the food we're eating nowadays is going to cause some kind of health issues and maybe weight issues. But there comes to a certain point that people may be using weight as body armor. They're trying to use it to protect themselves. Um, and uh, and so when you start healing that underlying grief and the issues surrounding that, then the body is going to start, resolving the issues within itself as well. It's
Yeah,
quite extraordinary. Spirit, mind, emotions, body, all interacting with each other. And you heal one, and this domino effect happens because you heal maybe some spiritual side of issues.
hmm
And that's going to affect, of course, your emotional issues, which will affect your mindset issues, which then, okay, then you'll affect your health issues. Because
right.
maybe now you want to go outside and walk in the sunshine and drink more water and eat more healthfully and things like this. And it all parts of it, of you, connected together. You heal one and it's going to affect the others. It's quite extraordinary to see
It's a,
happen.
it's a
Yeah.
domino effect.
Yeah.
I love that you said about people come wanting to work on ABC, but really those issues XYZ. Um, and Dr. Jason Fung, he's a doctor on YouTube, and he talks about that. He talks about like, oh, people are talking about like depression, and they're getting given some antidepressants. Like, no, figure out why they're depressed. What's
Yeah.
the root of why they're depressed? Heal that, not give them something for the symptoms. And so it reminded me of what you just said, like, the root of the issue is something other than what you're seeing as a symptom,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because people, it's like, well, if you've never gone mountain climbing before, why are you going to start with Mount Everest? You
Exactly.
go to your local mountain that's maybe only 10,000 feet or 12,000 feet or something. It's still extraordinary, but sometimes, you're there. It's like, why not climb Mount Everest while I'm here? And
Yeah.
and because of the ability to be vulnerable in that way while you're having that experience. And I think there's just comes a point where you're just like, I'm tired of it. That kind of saying, that cliche, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And you're having this experience that's like, well, while I'm here in the healing room or, talking with my guide or having a reunion with my soul friends, why not ask the question or ask for the healing or create the healing? I mean, we're there anyway.
hmm
What's at the very least, they'll say it's not time yet.
Yeah.
Come back in 2 months or something, Uh, but maybe it's time.
Yeah.
Maybe those other issues were the way to get you to the healing place where it would be time to heal. You know?
Exactly. It doesn't matter what gets you there, it's that you got there, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
everything starts unfolding.
yeah.
I had this past life regression. It's been like what, about 6 weeks, maybe?
Something like that. Yeah, yeah. I think so. Maybe 2 months.
Yeah, I was feeling 2 months, and I was like, could it be really that long? Because like
Yeah.
it's
Well, yeah,
just
we had a few hiccups in our schedules in terms
yeah,
of
time
finding
has
times to
gone.
record, but yeah, it's been a little bit.
Yeah, but I wanted to add that still there are things coming up and resurfacing
Yeah.
for me, and aha moments, things that I didn't even know I still had within me. I was in a I got into an argument with someone the other day. It was like a couple of days ago. And I was like really angry, and I was feeling like, why am I so angry? Like it wasn't like a that of a big deal, but I was reacting as if it was a huge big deal.
Yeah.
And I came in my room and I started doing all the things, the tools, the breathing, the breath work, all the movements. And then it was still like there. So I grabbed my notebook because I do automatic writing. And I just started writing what I felt. And I started writing, I hate you. And as I'm doing this, and I'm doing it like really hard, right? Like, I
Yes.
hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And as I'm doing this, I realized this wasn't directed to them.
Mm.
This was directed to my past life childhood moment.
Yeah.
And whatever happened in that little argument, it just, because everything is coming up, right? Everything is resurfacing now. It was right there on the cusp. So it's like this little thing, like your cup is full and it's like one little bump and then you're just spilling, right? So that's what happened to me. That's what I feel happened to me. And I was just like livid. But
Yeah.
it wasn't the anger towards the moment or towards this experience. It was what was coming up that I wasn't able to express back then. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm still sorry. My poor dog is like sleeping and he's like looking at me like, what the heck?
Yeah.
I was like, I can't believe that this is still coming up, that I was still holding on to all this anger and I was releasing it. And so, I mean, and this just happened like this past week. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it just continues to evolve. It just continues to happen and to come through and to be released. One
Yeah.
last thing I wanted
And
to
th- and
mention.
this happened after your insights and your healing. So it's a
Yes.
fascinating thing to talk about because maybe the anger you're having at your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your coworker, your employees, or whatever, maybe it's not because of them or
Yes.
what they're doing. Maybe there's other links to that anger.
Absolutely.
And it's just what they said or how they said it or what happened triggered that anger because it sort of kind of slightly resembled the issue from the past life you're still gripping onto that still
Yeah.
hurts.
Yeah.
And they're reminding you, they may even be playing parts. And I can't remember your specific situation, Valeria, but a lot of people will notice people in their lives today that played parts in
Mm-hmm.
their past life. Because we have this soul group of friends. Michael Newton, his books, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, explains it really well. But we have this group of soul friends, kind of like our own Avengers group, that we kind of move through our growth and learning and development together. Sort of like we started off in kindergarten together, and we all move through our learning and development to get our PhDs in enlightenment. And and part of that learning and development is coming to Earth and you know moving through these adventures that we're having together, playing different parts, sort of like a regional theater group. And there's a group of 8 actors, and they all play different roles depending on what play they're doing that month, you know, and wearing different hats and different costumes and different time periods. But they're all the same people. They're just kind of playing a different role that time. And so I can't remember specifically, this was a bit ago, but did you recognize anybody in your current life that played a role in that past life?
I don't believe so. I feel that I wanted to see, or I had the thought of like, let me ask if like certain people, like family members or partners, or who are in my life now, if we had a past life connection. I don't believe we went there, but I'm
Hmm.
going to re-listen to the recording and see what happened. I just haven't. I really wanted to listen to it before this particular
Hmm.
recording because I wanted to like to see if anything else came up. But it's just not
Yeah.
ready. Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
it's fine. I mean, like all this new stuff still coming up from that one session,
Yeah.
not from having re-listened to it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have over my time of just studying this process and training in it and working with people, I have a kind of an outline of I go through, and each kind of section has questions.
Mm.
And probably if we were to go through every question and get a response and an answer, it'd probably take 6, 7 hours.
Mm.
It'd probably be two, three past life regression sessions just to go through every kind of question and ask every single thing. So it's really guided by your experience and what is happening as
Yeah,
to
yeah,
what information is going on. You will get the information you need, and sometimes it's uh, appropriate to dive in deeper into your soul group. Other times it's more important to gain insights about your current life, specifically about purpose or your ultimate goals or your mission in this life. Other times it's important for the healing or just to reset and learn and grow while being in the spiritual library, things like this. So or maybe it's even important while in the spirit world to go to the past lives viewing room and seeing if are there threads through all of your past lives or a handful of past lives that connect together. Does your current life and that past life you just experienced connect with any other past lives that
yeah.
you've experienced?
I do
What?
remember that it came out that I believe I said I had only been on this incarnated on this earth a few times. I think it was like
Yeah,
3 or 5. I don't know. It was a very small number.
yeah.
I do remember that. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Did I ask if you'd ever been on like another dimension or planet or anything like that? I've had a few
I
people who kind of experienced other non-Earth-like experiences. That's
Yeah,
just
I don't
fascinating to
believe
me
we
always.
went to a different like wait, did we? I don't I really don't remember because
Yeah.
I remember like two major things. I remember the first scene that showed up, and I remember the other one after I died. So it's kind of like here I am having a past life, and then passed I passed away, and then all of a sudden instead of going to another past life, I'm like in heaven. So I was like in that I believe we spent a lot of time in that space of heaven and the light and oneness. That's what so those are the two major things that I
Yeah.
remember like off the top of my head as major important things that happened. But I don't believe we went to another one. I don't remember. I have to listen back and then get back to you.
Yeah, and that's what's fascinating about it. Like I say, maybe in a year from now, you'll come across that and say, "Oh yeah, I have time to listen to it and just gain even more insights about it." And
Yeah.
and maybe that's the point when you start to recognize and link people from your current life who played parts in that past life of yours. And what's fascinating is like sometimes it's just the entirely different situation. Your mother in this life was your male employer in that past life, or
Yeah.
captain of your mother, and you are male best friends in the army or something. So it's quite wild to find links to the parts your soul group members play and why.
Hmm.
Because we can go in depth, especially if the issues surrounding family and you want more information about why growing up was so hard or why your parents are the way they are or what that was all about. We certainly go in depth in that and find out why. Because what's fascinating is by going to the kind of again what Michael Newton calls the current life selection room, it's exactly that. Why did you choose this life? And it becomes a real mind bender, especially if you've experienced trauma in your life. This is where, great learning and great knowledge and insights can come as to, even though it was painful and maybe that shouldn't have happened and it certainly wasn't fair, like what can be gained from that? Why
Yeah.
might that have happened? And is it possible that the people who played those roles chose to do that to help you move through that experience and to learn and grow? It becomes quite extraordinary and a bit of a mind bender to go, you know, go to that life selection room and think, well, did this happen on purpose?
Hmm.
It becomes quite a meditative exercise to move through that with some because it's a vulnerable thing to start thinking about.
Yeah. You
If
remind
I'm
me.
here to learn, grow, and develop, then
uh
was this chosen? Did I choose it? And did the people playing the roles of, every great movie needs a villain in order for the story to move forward. So the hero can learn and grow. Joseph Campbell's archetypes, you have to go on the hero's journey. Hero's journey requires a villain. Otherwise, there's no story, there's no learning, and there's no growth.
And
Someone
that's why
has
we're
to
here
be,
on Earth to
yeah,
learn and grow through the struggles, through the
yeah. So it's quite
opposites.
it takes a while for that to settle in, um, because it's quite an extraordinary thing to think about, and let alone process and even discuss with other people. Would that even be a possibility? And
Hmm.
really, really turns things on its head.
Yeah, it's a lot.
You
It,
know,
it takes a while to integrate,
yeah.
unless you're like listening to it over and over and studying it over and over. It does take a lot to
Well,
wrap your
especially, I
mind
mean,
around it.
it's one thing to just, oh, that fight I had with my best friend that's now resolved. I wonder what I can learn from that. Okay, that's one thing, but it's another to have gone through extraordinary abuse and trauma as a child, let alone as an adult, and wonder why might have that been chosen for me, or I chose that, or how that all somehow connects with the greater purpose of me being here and having needed to go through that in order to fulfill my mission and my purpose. It's quite something heavy to think about and to sit with for a while.
Yeah, so it reminds me, I had a client who had a very um difficult relationship with one of the parents. And we went into the Akasha records and found that's the work that I do. And we went there to find out, and exactly to your point, that parent was part of their soul family, right?
Yeah.
And so in that space, in the in between, like we call it life after life, in that space, imagine like your soul family, and everyone is loving, everybody loves each other, everybody's amazing, right? Getting along, all of this stuff. And then from there they plan the next lesson, the next journey, the next quest here on earth. And my client, the person, wanted to learn a specific thing about self-worth. And it was their partner, it was their partner, like a, I don't know, like a partner,
Yeah.
on the other side, who volunteered to play the part of the villain here on Earth as one of the parents, so that they could experience the best, have the best experience in what they wanted to learn here on Earth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they chose to be that villain, right? Even though they like love you to death here on the other side, and then come back here, and now they become this monster type of a parent that makes life quite difficult for the child growing up with them. And it's like, this total like love hate relationship. And why is this happening? And it's like, oh, I chose to be the one because I love you so much. I didn't want anyone else to do it. What?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that complex.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's many books out there that talk about that as well. Child drowning in a pool and the information that comes from that later, maybe in a dream or maybe through spirit communication, is that the child or the uh, soul friend took on that role as maybe mentally handicapped or drowning as a child to help fulfill the, your growth and learning and development through that pain.
Yeah, I believe
And
that's one of the hardest ones. I mean, anyone
yeah,
who's lost a child, you,
yeah,
you can't tell them that story.
yeah, yeah. And and it's again, it's a mind twister, and it
Hmm.
is sometimes hard to wrap your mind around that would be possible. But again, stories don't work Star Wars doesn't work unless you have Darth Vader and the Empire. You know, King Arthur doesn't, and his quest doesn't work unless someone has stolen the Holy Grail. And so, uh, you kind of need that agitation, and to the point that if that includes extraordinary trauma, and then you start wrapping your head around what the horror that goes on in the world. And it's like, I don't know, it gets a bit much for me, and I have to kind of shut it down after a while.
Just cut it
And
out.
just go do some gardening work or go on a run or something, and and stop. But yeah, I don't know. I wish I had more answers, but I think what's fascinating is might actually create more questions
Hmm.
than, and you have questions, they get answered, but now you end up with more questions than you started with, just
Oh,
different and
for
maybe even
sure.
harder questions to answer. It's one of those things. I was studying music one time. It was back in the early 1990s. I was actually studying the music of India, and I was living in Santa Cruz and near Marin County, and there's a lot of musicians up there, and studying up there, and somebody said it's like the issue with this music of India is like the more you learn, the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. So it's not so much, yes, you're learning, but you're learning how much you don't know. So, oh, I'll just play a few little things and I'll have it down. It's like, no, there's so much more to it. And the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. And the
That's
same
going
with, I
down the
think,
rabbit
this kind
hole.
of work. Yeah, it's like you read a book. Oh, I got it all down time. I read that Michael Newton book. I think I have it figured all out. And then the more you experience this, the more you read, it's like, oh, I'm not even scratching the surface. I
Yeah.
have like four puzzle pieces of 1,000-piece puzzle put together, and I think I've got the whole thing figured out. It's like, oh, this isn't even close, you know?
Yeah, well, it really sounds like going down the rabbit hole because that's how it
Yeah.
starts, right? You go down one way, you
Mhm.
open yourself up to this, and then you find five more things attached
Mhm.
to that. And each one of
Yeah.
those things has five more things attached, and you can just go forever.
Yeah, yeah. It's sort of like, yeah, going through the New York subway or the Paris subway without a map, just walking through those tunnels. It's like I don't know where I am. I don't know what's happening. And it's to some aspect of, where you receive this excuse me, receive this information during a past life, and maybe our brain can only handle so much information.
For sure.
There's an infinite amount of water between rain and snow and our oceans, and but our cup can only hold so much.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that's all the water there is in the world is in our cup. It means that that's all we can process and hold at the moment.
Yeah. This is
And
why I
so,
feel like the more time that goes by since I had my session with you, you know, more things are opening up because it's like, okay, this revealed itself to me. Now I need to process this. Now I need to um anchor this in and ground it and feel into it and release. And then after I do all that, then my cup is allowing for other revelations to come
yeah,
through and then go through the process again.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And I think there's so much information that can be gained from a past life. And again, as you're processing, and maybe just due to the capacity of our brains to handle that much information, it needs to be kind of spread out over the course of days, weeks, months uh, afterwards. That there's so much to sit with in the months afterwards. And you may just be walking down the street and you pass by a bookstore and you glance into the bookstore window, and a picture, the cover of a book or the title of a book or the poster advertising the book kind of gives you more insights into say, oh my God, I just realized something. The
yeah.
bumper sticker on the back of a car, or
Hmm.
you're sitting in rush hour traffic, or something funny somebody says on a TV show,
Yep.
all kind of locks in another aspect of it.
I love
And
that you're mentioning all this
yeah,
because some people are like, oh, I'm asking my guides for help, or I'm looking for or searching for. I'm not getting any answers.
Yeah.
And the answers are all hidden in places
Yeah.
like all the things you just mentioned. We just
Yeah.
have to know how to look at them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the answers come. I just think again, sometimes they need to be spread out.
Hmm.
And maybe the learning, because if your goal is to learn, calculus or trigonometry or something, well, you need to start with your times tables first, and then move into fractions, and then, all that kind of stuff. You can't just start with trigonometry. There's a building point. And you have to start with that foundation of basic math and move up to those higher levels. And so it's like, oh, okay, you want the answer to that? Okay, here we go. It's going to take a bit because there's some building that needs to
Hmm.
be done. And here's a handful of books, and watch this documentary, and talk to this person, and go to that lecture, and hang out at that retreat, and then do your own past life regression, and then we'll get there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's a learning process, and it's like, if you have a question you want answered, doesn't mean it's going to get answered in the next 5 minutes. It's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
You want to play Stairway to Heaven on the guitar. It's like, all right, here's a G chord, here's an F chord. You got to start with row, row, row your boat first before you head off to, Stairway to Heaven. So it's just there's a relentlessness, I think, to this work
Hmm.
of growth, and I don't think we ever get to the point where we've learned everything we're supposed to learn. I mean, I guess we do, and that's when it's time to, you know, depart, maybe. But we've fulfilled our growth quotient for the time, or we've played the role we needed to play, or something. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, different for different people, but uh, I think we're here to learn and grow and develop and become better souls and better spirits and better us. And we just happen to be using this role as, me, I'm using this role as Craig Meriwether to learn and grow. And next time I might, I'll be somebody else if I need to come back and learn and grow, or help one of my soul friends, or I get tapped by another group because they need an extra member. And I met them at the pool party up in Spirit World or something. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll help out. That sounds fun. You know,
Yeah,
I don't know.
for sure.
Or I don't know,
Well,
maybe it's like theater in high school, and there's just a big casting call, and it's like, here's the roles that are up available. And I was like, oh, that sounds fun. I'll do that.
it always seems fun on the other side before we get here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, I can take it. I can take all of that.
yeah,
Thank you for that shake, Teddy.
yeah.
Shaking his head. Well, Craig, it's been wonderful,
Yeah, it's fun.
amazing. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too. It's been fun. This has been quite the journey for us, and it's been extraordinary working with you and meeting you. And I hoped for part four in the future at some point, because it's
Yeah, for
fun
sure.
talking with you.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And well, we'll see you next
See
time.
you next time.